Hi, guys. Welcome back to Call Me Cordelia, the podcast where we talk about everything under the sun regarding Anne with an E. I'm Ophelia.
And I'm Alexis.
Today we'll be discussing 3XO7. Uh,
Woo!
it's a good episode, but before we start talking about anything at all, I want to wish a happy birthday to Amy Beth because she just turned 18
Oh,
today, and that's a really special age. So if you ever happen to stumble upon this podcast, happy birthday, Amy Beth.
happy birthday, Amy Beth. I teared up a little bit. Moira posted like the happy birthday thing where she talked about she first met Amy Beth when she was 14. And I just feel like we really watched her grow up in an important time of her life. So, happy birthday, Amy Beth. We love you so much.
Okay, so general thoughts about the episode, Alexis.
Oof, way better than last week. Not to say I didn't like last week, but this episode was just really good. If you guys know anything about me, you know that I love schoolhouse settings or like when storylines are centering mainly around the kids because I just really love that dynamic. So this was like my episode then because that's really what that was the big chunk of it.
I liked it more too than episode six, and you think episode six is amazing, and then they just top that with episode seven. So, and with an E in general is killing it this season. I can't believe it's almost over.
Also, like, I don't know what happened, like what they changed. We'll probably talk about it more in depth in like a side episode that's not a rundown, but I liked season 2, but like a single episode of I know that liking season 2 is like kind of a hot take in the fandom, but it was fine. But like one episode of season 3 has been better than everything in season 2, and I still like it, but it's just blowing me away.
I liked the second half of season two. I didn't like the thief storyline at all. I was so confused about it. But anyway, let's not talk about that now. Again, it'll be in a side episode in the future.
Yes, stay tuned.
So, right out of the gate, we'll talk about Sherbert because we know that's why you all are here. We know.
Me too.
So,
That's why I'm here. Oh.
before we talk about Sherbert outside of Miss Stacy's house, we'll talk about the other things first before we just combust. Let's talk about Gilbert defending her when she's not even in the room.
Ooh, gold.
I I can't speak. What about you? Take the you take the lead.
Well, just like I reblogged a post earlier that talked about like Gilbert and Diana are just like chilling in the room and everything's great, and then the minute that Moody brings up like we should just fire Anne, suddenly they're both like ready to square up. They Gilbert looks so pissed. Diana literally stands up um to defend her. It's by Gilbert Dash Blythe without an E. I just had to give them credit really fast because that was a really good gift set. But yeah, like Gilbert, honestly, my note here just says that he's reading from her article like it's the Holy Bible. Like he's so proud of it. And just the way that I think it shows Gilbert's maturity, the same sort of characteristic that's we've seen since season 1, where he was like, why is it a big deal if I walk with her? But standing up for her when everyone else is kind of super pissed at her and saying, that she'd stand up for any one of you was just so good. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I really got the sense that like Gilbert. I mean, it just shows like Gilbert knows Anne so well. Like he knows her character, and even when he's angry at her, even when she's making those sarcastic comments at him and like snapping at him, like she tends to do, deep down he knows like Anne. She would do it. Like she'd stand up for any one of them, and he still will defend her.
Yeah, I agree. Like at the end of the day, he knows Anne is she's not always right, but she means well, and he knows that, and he trusts her, and that's really cool to see. And yes, like her article is basically a feminist manifesto, and he's just worshiping it. And last episode, I said Gilbert is not a flawless feminist, but I almost have to take back my words because he just fully agrees.
We might have to.
No one is a flawless feminist, but he's just very progressive and it's very nice to see. And I'm curious for future seasons when they are courting or in a relationship or whatever, that they will not follow like the rules or something because they're so progressive. Um, Food for thought. Anyway, they're sitting next to each other, knee to knee when painting. I died.
Oh my gosh. They absolutely just did not have to sit that close to each other. There was
No.
so much space. There was so much space. And I just think like in that scene, I mean, this point kind of carries throughout all of their scenes this episode, like when they were standing in front of the schoolhouse and it was just the two of them for a little bit. They're just
Yeah.
their little banter moments, like the way that they sort of mess with each other, is so great, and I love that so much about them because they're both so witty and smart. I love seeing just those like casual, sort of borderlining on flirty moments play out. So I just really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
That's what that's what we have been waiting for 3 seasons, like these little
Oh,
moments that don't
yes.
have much value to the plot, but for character development, it's so enriching because this is like those little in between shots where nothing is happening and it's just them and they can only rely on how well they know each other and how they can further grow together and it's just so beautiful. Also his little sentence like have faith, just a suggestion.
Oh my gosh. My smart ass son. I love him so much. And just throughout all of their scenes this episode, it was just them working together, like being such a
Yeah.
unit, just side by side, together as equals. They're standing in front of the schoolhouse, it's just the two of them. They're working side by side up in the loft. When they're making the signs, when they actually do the protest, like he's standing right behind her too, and I just love that dynamic that they have. I feel like that's just a very classic Anne and Gilbert dynamic, just how in harmony they are, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, just working right side by side next to each other. And I just think that they've definitely brought that dynamic that's been so iconic for them into Anne with an E. That's one of the main things I appreciate about Sherbert's relationship in general. So love that. Thank you, Moira.
Thank you, Moira. But I'm just so happy that we're finally able to see it happen, that their chemistry is not just eye contact, but it's actually conversational as well. Like they do have things in common, and we finally see that happening. And it's so beautiful. I don't know.
Yeah,
It,
I appreciate it a lot. And like the thing is, I feel like there's so many sort of jokes about like Sherbert has just like made eye contact up until this point. That was mainly throughout season 1 and season 2. It was like season 1, season 2 eye contact. Season 53 is when they'll hug each other, and season 3 said, "Nope, it's happening. It's all happening now. Everyone get ready." Cuz you're right, like that was one of the big things that we also sort of really wanted going into this season, was that we love obviously the unspoken chemistry between Sherbert, but we just wanted Sherbert to talk, like just have good conversations and just talk. Like we felt like they hadn't really had a conversation like that except for the tea house scene. And they've been speaking more and more. We've talked about this so many times, but just the way that they are around each other now is so comfortable, really implying without shoving it in our face that the Blythes and the Lacroix and the Shirley Cuthbert family have all been together a lot these past few years, and obviously that's going to reflect in the way that Gilbert and Anne interact.
Now.
Okay, I know what you're about
When
to say.
when I saw Gilbert in the background of Anne and Miss Stacy's scene, I was thinking, what if they did a blur cut from Anne to Gilbert? And I was like, no, they would never do that. That's just ridiculous. He's just there to be in the background, like always, like in the earlier seasons and in the earlier episodes. Like nothing will happen. And then they
No.
just did it. Like the
They did.
motherfuckers they are. I lost my shit.
Oh
And he
my
looked at her like
god.
he was seeing her in a new light. And I just died. And
I
right now, guys, will come the very unintelligent part of this podcast where we will just scream and I
yeah.
will awaken my entire city.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
so sorry for how these next few minutes are gonna go, but I just I don't have coherent
who
thoughts.
who would have thought that Gilbert's motherfucking Blythe would see her and realize now is the time to get her alone to have a
Oh
conversation
my god,
with her? Just like
he did it!
fucking
Like this little
get
shit that he
like
is.
he wanted to strike. He wanted to get that. He wanted to go to his goal, like his mission. I'm
Oh my god.
okay.
Honestly, my friend I was watching, I mention them every week, but shout out to my friends that I watch with every week. Um, but one of them, like, when it was just that shot of, by the way, that adorable shot of Miss Stacy giving Anne a little hug, and then we saw Gilbert kind of blurred out in the background. Her hand shot out and gripped my arm so hard. Like she sensed it. She knew exactly what they were about to do. And the look that Gilbert gave her fucking murdered me. I'm so sorry. There's gonna be a lot of swearing probably in this portion as well, but like, it was just so different. I feel like from the vast majority of the looks that he gives her.
Yeah,
Because if you,
this was
it was more in awe, I guess. Like if you think of like the looks that he gave her at like Prissy's wedding, or right after Bastion Mary's wedding, comparable to like the anyway scene. Just those are very like intense, or the Christmas dinner, those are very intense. He's kind of smirking, like he knows he likes her, and I'm not like mischievous about it. I don't think that's the right word. But this look, I
I
feel like
think
is,
he just realized it. Like
yes,
he just realized like, oh yeah, this is she's it. She's the girl for
yes,
me. I
yes.
think.
It's like
I'm sorry
it's like
to
a
interrupt you, but yeah.
no, I mean that's pretty much what I was gonna say, because like the look that he gave her, I feel like is very comparable to, oh, like it was very comparable to that very first scene they have when Anne's about to walk into the schoolhouse and Gilbert walks up and gives her that split second glance in season 1 before he opens the door. It also reminds me a lot of the spelling bee look. Just, it's very soft. It's not like, not hormonal, again, is not the word that I'm looking for. Like I just feel like the smirks have a very different feel than like the soft hard eyes that he was giving her. It was just very
Yeah.
in awe is really the only way I can think of to word it. And he fucking said, it's my time. Let's do this. And he did it. He did the damn thing, and he went outside and sat on the porch with her at night. I
You not murder me, Alexis. I'm not okay. But I'm glad you mentioned the spelling bee because they made a fucking callback
Oh
to
my
it as if
god.
that would leave me unaffected. It affected me, guys. And after I was making my notes, as I do after the episode, and I realized, like, oh, Gilbert still thinks about that moment, and that was legit 4 years ago, maybe?
4 years ago, maybe even more. And
I don't even
Gilbert is still bringing it
remember
up.
what I ate yesterday. I don't even remember what I ate yesterday, and he still remembers that. Like, insanity.
And I love how the spelling stuff has been a thread, like that's been kind of
Yeah.
the one Shirbert thing that they've carried out and called back to over the 3 seasons. Obviously, it started in season 1, but season 2, when he goes and gets her the dictionary and brings it back, and when Diana mentions to Anne when she's reading the letter, like, didn't he misspell engage? And Anne's like, engagement, but I don't remember, or something like that. And
Yeah.
I can't believe they had the audacity to have a spelling bee call back in the context of the scene that was happening. The tension on the porch was like tangible, Oh, they have Amy Beth and Lucas have such amazing chemistry. They deserve an Oscar for it. How did you feel about the generally with the porch scene, Ophelia? What are your thoughts on the looks, the conversation, the mention of Winifred at the end? Like, break it down for me.
Okay. First of all, I agree. I feel like that porch scene was Oscar worthy. To be honest, like no shits and giggles, like that was a masterpiece. But generally, I think it was just really the words they used were so intentional and carefully placed. Um, like them saying they have nothing to argue about, nothing to fight about, meaning that Anne has accepted that Gilbert is with Winifred, even if even if it hurts her, even if she has heartache over it, and he's perfectly content with Anne as well, obviously, seeing how he's acting around her. And just her continuously laughing after everything he says. Like you could think she's nervous or just really happy he's in her presence. And the looks, guys. It's insane how many emotions go through their mind, and we can just see it happening. They're so talented. They play off of each other so well. That little gasp Anne or Amy Beth did whilst staring was just a cherry on top. And the fact that she brings up Winifred as a lucky gal implies that she sees Gilbert as a good option too, and he's annoyed because he realized he likes Anne. I think this was like his true realization of like, oh yeah, I'm in love with her. I
Oh,
like
this is what
Winifred, but
love is.
yeah. What about you? What did you think?
My notes are pretty incoherent for this section, but I'm gonna try to decipher them. So, yeah, I really think I was worried. We talked about it a lot last episode, but I was a little uneasy that the dance was not when Gilbert realized how he felt about Winifred, or Winifred didn't realize how Gilbert felt about Anne. And I was getting a little worried, but I'm not anymore at all after this scene. I think this was the start of him being like, no, this is what love feels like. I can be fond of Winifred, but it's nothing compared to what Anne makes me feel. I think that
Yeah.
was the decisive moment for him. And also the fact that they're like able to laugh and joke about their arguing and their bickering and acknowledge it. It shows nothing to this point I think is going to be able to break up their relationship. The fact that they're able to sit there and be like, "Oh, shouldn't we be arguing about something right now?" and they're laughing about it. I just feel like that shows, nothing petty is going to come between them. No argument about Winifred, no snide remark Anne makes about buying a piece of land or how she doesn't need his help. I just I felt like that was just it was so mature of them to acknowledge the dynamic of their relationship and how they do bicker, they do argue sometimes, but it's nothing that's unhealthy, I feel like. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously sometimes it's a little uncalled for, but they always can move past it. And the fact that they were laughing and joking about it, like I said, I feel like drives that point home. Just that there's nothing really that's going to drive them apart. And we have talked about this also pretty extensively, but I thought there was absolutely no possibility of a kiss this season. I thought that if they were going to start setting one up, I was going to be mad. I was going to feel like it was coming out of nowhere. But the events that happened in this episode, the events of honestly the past 2 episodes, when they were sitting on the porch, the implication was pretty clear, I think, that Gilbert probably would have kissed her if she hadn't said anything about Winnie, which he is still with Winifred, so obviously that wouldn't have been great. But in that moment when they were setting it up almost, it felt right. Like, we both watched Teen Wolf, so I'm gonna pull an example from Teen Wolf. Obviously we're gonna expose ourselves.
Yes.
We both were huge Stydia stans. That's where I got my start on Tumblr. That's where Ophelia got her start on Tumblr. And we obviously wanted them to canon. We wanted them to kiss, like for forever, like the whole show. But I remember watching season 5, and there was this scene where Lydia's not doing great. I'm not going to spoil the show if you have not watched it yet somehow, or if you want to go
Episode
watch
16?
it. Yeah, 516.
Oh, yeah,
When
okay.
Lydia's not doing great, and they're in the back of their friends. Well, they're in the back of Styles' Jeep, and Scott's driving them. And there's this like split second, something happens where I was like, holy shit, are they going to kiss? And I remember watching that episode and being like, holy, no, not right now. Please don't kiss right now. It doesn't feel right now. Don't let them kiss. This would be all wrong. This is not how I want it. And I thought that if they were going to be setting up a scene where it kind of looked like they were maybe going to kiss, I was going to get that same feeling. But honestly, when they were sitting there and it felt like for a hot second that maybe it was going to happen, I was totally okay with it. And maybe that makes me a bad person because Gilbert has a girlfriend, but it didn't feel wrong like I thought it would. Does that make sense? Like the timing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was waiting for you to bring up the kiss because I didn't want to bring it up myself because I wouldn't have survived it. But I thought I knew they wouldn't kiss, but like you said, there was like the implication it would have happened if Anne hadn't said anything or if Gilbert wasn't attached to Winifred right now. But I'm wondering if Winifred is like actually his girlfriend because in the last episode when he tried to introduce her, he couldn't find the words because there wasn't anything formally uh they weren't any labels yet, which like fine, but also I think Anne thinks Winifred is Gilbert's girlfriend, but he knows Winifred isn't his girlfriend, so it's just one big miscommunication right now. Um, which I don't mind. It makes great TV. But yeah,
Yeah.
the kiss, the almost kiss reminded me of what Anne said in the bard when they were making the pallets, the plates, the wooden plates, whatever. And she said like a kiss should always be consensual and between two people that like each other. And for me, that already was foreshadowing, and then they just brought them together like that on a porch. I was
Yeah.
very affected. So I think marry for love, just for love, and kissing should be between two people that like each other will come back again and again and again because it's so important and
We've just been
pivotal
talking about it so
between them.
much.
Yeah.
Like season 2 also. I've talked about this before, but the episode Gilbert comes back is like the episode I think right after they have this whole, or that maybe even on the episode, I think it's right after, where they have this whole like discussion among the girls of kissing and like if I wanted to kiss a boy, wouldn't I just do it and all that stuff. So they've just been talking about it so much, and I think it was just the culmination of that. It was the dynamic they'd had in the whole episode where they're kind of banter, flirting, it seemed like. And uh, I just think all of it was kind of building and building right under my own nose, because if you had asked me before last episode, I still probably would have said, no, I don't want them to kiss yet. But when it was being set up, like I said, it felt right. Like I feel like it could have happened, and deep down I knew that that's not what they were going to do, but a different, more or less logical part of me was like, here we go, bitch, it's happening. um yeah, I don't know. So I guess my opinion has kind of changed now. Like, they honestly, if they played their cards right, and it would have to be playing their cards correctly, I could maybe see a kiss actually happening this season, or at least a confession. Just putting that out there. Although I do still kind of feel like they're gonna kiss when they can, but who knows? Who knows?
I wonder how I would react if they kissed in the final episode of season 3, so 3x10.
I might
I'm
black
just
out.
wonder, I'm just trying to picture myself seeing that happen and reacting to it in a way that isn't bestial. Um,
I
yeah.
might need to take my inhaler that I haven't taken for like a year or two now.
I just wanted to
So
say, do you have asthma?
I do have asthma. I actually had to take my inhaler after Teen Wolf 516. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, like an actual, like, I had to take it. Like, I
Oh
wasn't
my
trying to
God.
be funny or anything. So
I
they
thought you
didn't
were
even kiss
always
in that episode.
joking.
No, that was never shown. It actually happened. There's video evidence of it, courtesy of my friends. So if I had to take my inhaler and Stydia they didn't even kiss in that episode. I don't, I am unsure at this point in time what exactly is going to happen to me health wise if Shirbert cannons. Anyway.
So this is the end of Sherbert, I think, before like we talk about it for another 2 hours. So we'll now go to um the whole thing with the Gazette and demonstration and the
Ooh.
protest and Josie, like the heavy stuff, the actual important stuff of the episode, actually. Let's be intelligent beings for a second and yeah, start there. So I thought it was so daring of, but also so expected of Anne with an E to make an episode in times like these where everything is so polarized and black and white and extreme, to make an entire episode about freedom of speech and why it's so important and why it is pivotal to have opinion pieces in newspapers. Because right now you can't see your opinion without being murdered, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
either way, I would
so
say.
that was it was just so great. What did you think?
I totally agree. I'm yeah, it was a very, very good topic to bring up, and I think the way that they went about it was it didn't feel too on the nose or campy, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
the whole situation didn't come out of nowhere. It made sense in the plot, and it was a very important topic to discuss because, like you said, everything is so black and white now, and no matter the opinions that you have, I think that you have the right to express those. And Miss Stacy, talked about how it's harmful when the powers that be tell you that you can't express those, and why it's so important to write about your beliefs and have different opinions out there. So yeah, I really appreciated it. It brought a lot of discussion, and I feel like it's going to continue and maybe even help carry along the Caquette storyline that I hope
definitely.
they get back to soon. So yeah, I really loved it. I think the MVP for that uh, particular plot line was definitely Miss Stacy. She is such an amazing teacher. I love her a lot.
what I thought was interesting as well is how the Andrews family reacted to it.
Yeah.
Jane was like, she didn't get the problem. She was like, why is this happening? But Percy, on the other hand, she has extracted herself from her family and created her own mindset on the world, which is a thing every new generation does, but it's nice to see her be an example of that. Yeah, it was really interesting seeing their differing opinions in one single family where usually everyone has the same opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think with Jane, it's difficult to be angry with her or angry with
Yeah,
her at all, I would say,
she's a
because
product of society.
yeah,
It's
that's just the product of her time and it's not realistic. I would be more angry if all of the girls were immediately behind Anne and like
yeah,
taking up the torch because honestly, that's not realistic. That would not have really happened during the time. Maybe a few of them, but you absolutely cannot expect everyone in the same room or even in the same friend group to have the same opinions and views. And yeah, so I thought that was also an important angle to show from Jane because, I think kind of framing it with her giving her opinion in front of her father and asking if he agrees was just driving home the point that she's just a product of her family, like the beliefs that she grew up in. She's a product of her time. Um, yeah, I did appreciate that. I guess I hope to see Jane come around, and I think she did. Wasn't she in the protest this episode? I can't remember, but I feel like Jane. That was just an important side of it to show, and it was realistic. So
yeah. Um, I was also happy that Josie eventually joined, kind of.
oh
Um,
yes,
it was she's so smart and she's so cunning, and I'm really glad she, you know, had had the bravery inside of her to do that. That's really amazing, amazing.
yeah, and her holding hands with Anne on stage, the development.
Yes.
Josie development snuck up on us, which we'll get to in just a moment because that's like a big portion of my notes was Josie. And whoever thought that I'd see the day that that would happen, but here we are, I guess. But yeah, I just think with the whole schoolhouse newspaper scene, even though it was like very frustrating and you could, I mean, Miss Stacy was like clearly showing the frustration. The bright light in it, I think, was Miss Stacy. She was so diplomatic with the way that she was handling the kids. I love her so much. She is such an amazing teacher. Just the way that she was like settling them down to talk it out, I feel like even now that's kind of revolutionary because a lot of teachers I think would have just told them to be quiet and get back to work, but she wanted them to talk it out and she wanted to hear how everyone was feeling because she values them as people, not her inferiors. Um, like when she said, talk about it at a level that won't cause deafness. And then at the end, or at the end of that scene, I guess, when she pulls Anne aside specifically, and she's not yelling at Anne, she's not angry. She's just talking it out and showing Anne the different side of it and giving her advice on how to handle the situation, which is just, again, the earmarks of such an amazing teacher, I feel like. And even now, that seems a bit revolutionary in some cases.
I agree. Yeah. I don't have a lot of notes on Josie for some reason. I think I was just so taken aback by the entire episode. So maybe you can further go further on what you think of Josie because I love her development. It's so well done and it's so logical too, how she went from mean girl to wanting to be more mature to just accepting she's part of her group and these are her peers and she can learn something from Anne and Anne can learn something from her. But I know you have more notes, so you can continue.
Yeah, the Josie development, like I said, also is something that I never expected to have so many thoughts on. Like, I've had people in my ask box before ask me how I would feel about Josie development or Billy development, and I always said I didn't know. Like, honestly, it didn't really interest me. It wasn't like a storyline that I needed like right now. But I turns out I do need it right now because it's been amazing. The storm out of the church at the beginning, just the utter like heartbreak and pain that she's feeling was so real. And Miranda is such an amazing actress. Like, I'm so glad
Yeah.
they gave I'm so glad yeah, I'm so glad they gave that dimension for her to act, because I feel like up until this point Josie's been pretty one dimensional, and having that was just so, like, Miranda killed it. So Miranda, if you ever happen to listen to this podcast, amazing. Like, it was incredible. I don't even have words for it. Just her performance was so good. And just the development, I think, again snuck up on me, because I guess I didn't really realize how much she had changed this season until we saw, when Anne comes and tries to apologize and Joe storms out of her house at Anne and comes and, slaps her. She has this like moment of just complete character regression. She smacks Anne and she calls her trash again, which was a pretty common thing for her to say to Anne in season 1. It felt like a punch in the gut to me, because it felt so different from the Josie that we'd been seeing, and I guess I didn't realize how different she was until that line punched me in the stomach, because she's so angry. Like I said, just the regression, the character regression in that moment, and just the pure anger coming out in ways that Josie used to treat Anne was character writing gold. It was an amazing choice. Obviously it hurt, obviously, and it wasn't good. Josie shouldn't have done that, but it was really effective, I think. So also, like, the conversation she had with her mom where she talks about how nice isn't relevant, and
Yeah.
Josie's like, he hurt me, and she says, well, you seem to be in one piece now, was so heartbreaking,
Yeah.
but so real to the time, I feel like. um yeah, it also, we talked about it, we touched on it, but Prissy, like, the way that she stood up for her. Ooh, let's talk about Prissy for a second, because wow, I I actually think Prissy is my episode MVP. I'm gonna name her my episode MVP this time.
Oh, my MVP is either Gilbert or Prissy. So we can just like they're both MVP for me. So
Yeah, I think
yeah.
Gilbert is definitely my runner-up. I would say Gilbert and then Stacy, but Prissy just stole the episode. Like, when she is going against Billy and talking to her father, and she says, "You have all of the power, all of it." So real,
Yeah.
so true. Oh, the line where she says, "I can think of one smell worse than male desperation, hypocrisy."
Hypocrisy. Yes.
Bitch. Whoa. I was floored. And just, I mean, we never saw Josie and Prissy interact like before this, but I'm I'm sure that she didn't really have an opinion on her, but taking Josie's side against her family was just so powerful. I don't know.
I think it just shows. I will come back to the schoolhouse later because something happened to it, obviously. But it just
Mm,
shows how important education is for everyone, but especially for women at that time. Because Prissy, she used to be in the hands of Mr. Phillips, who was a pervert, basically. And now she's this well educated, opinionated woman that knows what is right and what is wrong, and she has this moral compass that will not waver for anyone else but herself. And yeah, she's just like a new woman. She's the new generation of women standing up, and it's so cool. It's like another example of, oh, we're now going into the 20th century. This is a new kind of way we need to live. Um, she's just a fucking badass, and I love her. So.
Yes. Um, yes, full agree. Uh, she stole the episode for me. And just when she's sitting there talking to her father about the business, while he's like kind of instructing her on how to make his tea, one, she is so smart, and two, you can feel as the audience the frustration that was very common back then. I mean, that was not an uncommon reaction, I feel like, to your daughter asking if she can take over the
Yeah.
business, you know? And Prissy obviously knows more what she's doing than Billy. She obviously has more of a desire for it than Billy. And it would still go to him. And that's very frustrating. And the way that they wrote it and kind of felt it out, it was just it was like it was very good. You could feel the frustration along with it. Oh, also with Josie, the scene where she takes the ribbons out of her hair was
Fucking killed me.
oh, it was so good because that's been something that they've been dragging along since like season 2.
Yeah.
When they first gave that little quick glimpse at Josie's home life and the expectations she has on her. And ripping them out was very symbolic and beautiful. I didn't ever think that I would be invested in a Josie storyline, if I'm being honest, and I very much am. So, 10 out of 10 to the writers. Killed it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same thing actually. Like in season 2, when they showed that snippet of her home life, I was like, what is the point? This is not even coming back. Like, why did they waste screen time for this little scene that means something, but not regarding the plot? But now I see they've crafted a story that, is now very interesting to see. And it reminded me of like Mulan chopping off her hair and being like, this is me. I'm gonna be a boss bitch and do what is right for me. And yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I
Um,
fully agree because when I saw that scene in season 2, I also kind of had the same reaction where I was like, "Oh my god, I don't care." Because I feel like one of the downsides of season 2 was that which we will talk about when we kind of give like our season 2 wrap ups or when we start talking about just like general thoughts on season 2 at some point in this podcast. But I I think that one of the things season 2 edged on making mistakes with was they had a lot going on at once. There's just a lot of different moving parts and plots to it, and I remember kind of being which they ended up, in my opinion, wrapping up nicely, and they juggled it fairly well. It could have been better, but fairly well. And I just remember like when they showed that scene with Josie, I was like, oh my god, we don't have time for Josie redemption right now. Like, I don't want
yeah.
this. I don't care. Where is Gilbert? Like, I just care about Bash and like all of this, and I didn't care at all because I was like, we don't have time. Like, what is the reason? And now I think they knew that too. They're way smarter than me. So I just need to trust them more. But now that they're actually delivering it, I am completely here for it.
I think we can now move on to another really interesting character this episode, which is Diana Barry.
Mm.
It started off really mature with her advising Anne to like talk to Josie. It was the right thing to do, very mature, very, very, very kind. And then we see her with Jerry, and we realize that they will probably not elope like I thought they would.
Ah.
That I put it in my notes. Like biggest clown of the pod is Ophelia because she thought Diana and Jerry would elope. So, yeah, I loved everything about Diana this episode because for once they gave Delilah, who plays Diana, range. Like she's always super poised and collected, and she can do spontaneous things influenced by Anne, but it's never vulgar, it's never ugly, it's never from the wrong reasons. And now she's showing that, and it works so well because it brings this new layer to her character. So I loved her interaction with Jerry in the woods, and I loved the fight she had with Anne because for once they finally quarreled for real, and it's so well. Just I never thought they would have a fight. There would be a fight between them about rich and poor and being of a lower class. I thought it would only be between Jerry and Diana, but it happened between Anne and Diana too. And it was just really good. I love fights because I've said this like a million times, but fights are so emotional. So I love them. Yeah, 10 out of 10. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, Dalia and Amy Beth deserve fucking awards for that scene
Yeah.
because wow. um, but it hurt, but it like kind of needed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also particularly for Diana's character, like you said, this whole time she's only ever been poised and a lady, and then we see her start to edge out and for once in her life start rebelling. And someone made this point. I can't quite remember where I saw it, so I'm so sorry if it was you and I don't remember, but someone was talking about how Diana Diana's rebellion is different from Anne's, and the reason it's kind of like an alternate version of Anne, which we talk about a lot, but
Yeah.
Anne has been rebellious and kind of on the edges her whole life. And it has hurt people before, when she's been kind of a little bit selfish sometimes, or, stuff like that. And Diana has never stepped out of line before. She's never, you know, tried to be rebellious, and so it's all kind of coming out at once, and that's why there's so much collateral damage right now, like with Jerry and with Anne, and um I suspect soon with her parents, but
Oh, yes.
yeah, so I yeah, it was a lot, and the fight between her and Anne was so interesting to me because they were both right and they were both wrong at the same time.
Yes, I wrote that too. It's so well done.
Yeah, they both have really good points and they're both lashing out in very unnecessary ways and making pretty low blows to each other. I have faith that it'll be mended. But yeah, it hurt a lot. It was a very effective fight though. It was a very well written and acted scene. So in terms of Derry, I will say my only complaint with how it played out was that it was not like Diana not having feelings for Jerry was never even a thought in my mind because they haven't really been playing that until now. Um, like it's been being played like she has a crush on him and it's just like this cute little romance, but now it's kind of this episode was the first time I feel like where it was really brought up that she doesn't actually, like have feelings for him. She's just kind of rebelling and she likes kissing boys and yeah, I just feel like that kind of came out of nowhere.
To me, it didn't. Well, I was a clown. I thought, they'd elope, whatever, that they were already in love. But thinking of it back, it could have also just been her being attracted to Jerry. And now realizing like, oh, I can only kiss him and we can't really talk the way Anne and Gilbert can, for example.
Oh,
And I think that's the thing going on. Like they are like Gilbert and Winifred. It's attractiveness and, that's it. Because I do think she cares for Jerry because she said like, oh, I hope that once I go to Paris, they'll just fizzle out because she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. So she does care for Jerry. It's just not in the way that Jerry is feeling for Diana. Um, and by the way, that scene between him and Anne was equally as cute and heartbreaking at the same time.
yes, I miss their interactions. I feel like we haven't really gotten them barely at all this season, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I miss that. And the fact that Jerry comes to Anne to talk about girls, like, yeah, I love their relationship. And I really, 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 really hope that they interact more this season because I have been missing them. So
Remember when people thought they'd become a couple?
what? I forget about that commonly. Yeah. I think I'm trying to block it out.
What did you think of Marilla and Matthew this episode?
Oh, you might have put this in your notes too, but the fact that Marilla just like is not even phased anymore by Anne coming in at 4 a.m. She's just kind of like, "We'll sleep in, I guess." Like I think she at this point realizes there's no point in trying to stop it from happening. And Matthew's line where he said, "I reckon you've heard enough about this from a man." King. I love him. What about
Bro,
you?
I legit wrote that. Like, under Marilla, it said she's not even phased anymore when Anne comes home at 4 a.m. That's legit what I
Oh my
wrote.
god.
Um, oh yeah, guys, if you didn't know, we're spiritually like um out, we're separated spiritually from the womb because we're
Yes.
legit the same person. It's scary, but
It's
anyway,
kind of terrifying sometimes.
yeah. It's just every episode, it just shows more and more how Marilla is a true mom, helping and supporting Anne through everything. And she's just like, oh yeah, this is Anne. I'm your biggest fan. Like, let's go. I love her. And yeah, Matthew's line was really good. He just has great one-liners, Matthew.
Yeah. Every time he speaks it has a distinct point. Like
Yeah.
he's very careful and he might listen a lot, but when he does speak, like it's a big deal. Which we talked about a few episodes ago. Um Speaking of that, just like a few episodes ago, this is just a side note. I think I'm liking the second half of season 3 more, or I would say from like episode 5 on have been my favorites. Maybe 5 and 7 are tied. 4 was really good too though. But I just feel like they're getting better and better. And I hope I'm not jinxing that when I say that, but I just think we're in for how many more episodes? Is it 3 more are left? 3 more, 4
Yeah,
more?
8, 9, and 10. 8, 9, and 10.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm very scared, but it's okay. It's okay. Well, we're gonna do this together.
I was looking
Um,
at like what episode 5 was because I didn't remember, and of course you like the episode where they dance. Oh God. Okay.
so
Do
good.
you think season 3 would get an Emmy? Because it could.
Oh, it sure as hell deserves one.
Yeah. Like
It's just
it's
the flow of it and the plot. Like I said, I feel like season 1, the downfall of it, quote downfall. Some people didn't like it. The reason a lot of people stopped, I feel like, is because it was very expositional. It was kind of a little bit slow at parts. And then season 2, I feel like they almost picked up the pace too much, and they tried to juggle too many plots, which they did. Like I said, I think they did that fine, because I think that having, quote, too many plots only becomes an issue when you can't wrap them all up in a good way. But I feel
Yeah.
like they wrapped them all up pretty well in season 2, so I guess technically it wasn't bad. It was just a lot going on. But season 3 has just flowed very nicely. Everything has a point. All of the plots that they've had have been interesting. I care about all of them. Which season 2, there were some that I could take it or leave it, and yeah. But this season, I really enjoy all of the plots that they've set up. So yeah, all that to say, it deserves an Emmy. So I hope it gets one.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's been really good. How did you, I guess we'll talk about it more later, but like in terms of season 1 and season 2, how do you think that season 3 is stacking up?
The thing is, I hardly rewatch shows, so I haven't watched season 1 and 2. Like, I haven't rewatched those seasons. But I do know, but I think season 1 and 3 are now tied, and season 2 is at the bottom. Um, yeah. I think once we have our full 5 seasons, I can make a proper ranking because right now I just don't really. It's all just so good. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, we've been going on for an hour, so let's go to the ending, some trivial points, and then the Q&A. We have 2 questions. So that ending, dude, the
Ooh.
schoolhouse is burned down.
Yes. I was not ready for that, and
No.
I'm very upset because, like, I opened this episode saying schoolhouse scenes and scenes with the kids are my favorite. So, way to go, Moira. Just take away my favorite setting in the whole show, I guess. Yeah, I was not expecting that. And I think one of our questions will cover a wink wink theory about potentially some stuff that could go down next episode with the schoolhouse burning down. So we'll get to
Yeah.
that in a second. But um just another, I guess, like last second note was or I had a few more, but just some side notes, I guess, is Miss Stacy and Gilbert sitting together in church was
Yes.
so, I love their relationship. It's so quiet and just like um natural, I feel like, compared to Anne and Miss Stacy's, which is way more in the forefront. But yeah, I love it. We stan showing having good relationships with your teachers, because coming off of Mr. Phillips, obviously.
Yeah, I
Uh
had good relationships with my teachers, and even now at university, so it's really nice to see that happening. Um, do you have other notes?
I just have one that says, "Can you believe Mr. Barry invented dad jokes?" And I don't really remember what that was specifically in reference to, but Mr. Barry is an interesting character, and I just remember laughing at something he said in this episode. So continue with your dad jokes, good sir. Um, Also, with Gilbert this episode, besides just being generally an amazing individual and so supportive of his wife, I loved I again, one of my big complaints, that I guess still hasn't, like, really been answered is I really want Gilbert to have, like, they talk about how Gilbert is such a popular boy in school, but he, like, doesn't really have any friends there. He doesn't really hang out with anybody besides Anne and Miss Stacy. And we saw that in the dance episode also, where he was just, like, all the kids were outside, like, talking about, like, the take notice board, and he's reading the newspaper with his teacher inside. And I feel like now I kind of understand the implications of Gilbert is much more of a he's less of a peer and more of a leader to them, I feel like. Like, even the way that they were framing him in this episode with how he was standing up for Anne, but just physically framing him, like, he was sitting up front, in front of everybody in the newspaper scene. He was sitting on top of a table. Pretty much everyone else was sitting down, kind of behind him-ish, and he just exuded, like, leader energy, like,
Yeah.
how do I word, like, healthy alpha male, not like toxic alpha male energy, but like healthy alpha male energy. He just is a natural leader, and I think that's what they're more framing him as. However, I would still love to see him, hanging out with like Charlie or something, but
I don't
I
think that'll happen again.
no.
Because Charlie and Anne, that whole situation. But I think Gilbert was popular before his father got sick. And because when big things happen in your life, you kind of change because of it.
Mhm.
And I think that's what happened, like up until his 14th year. He was like a popular boy, smart, handsome, whatever. But then because of all the things that happened to him, plus him coming into his zone as he ages and grows up, I think he is just more of an introvert, more of a leader, more someone that kind of like Matthew will only speak when it's necessary. But when he says something, it is with reason and it's powerful. I mean, yeah, unless it's with Anne, because that's when he just like blurts out weird stuff. But with normal people, with normal people, he's like you said, a leader, and it's very serene. And like we all said, like he's more of the mature type, so it's normal. He isn't interested in the take notice board since it's like an elementary school thing, basically.
Yeah. And I agree.
Okay, I have two. One that says the table full of white men interrupting comes straight from my nightmares.
Yes.
Just okay. And Anne's stunt, where she put the Gazette on the porch of the church. I think it was a callback to Martin Luther when he created the Protestant church.
Oh yeah.
Because he pinned the rules of the Protestant church on the door of the church, and because of that, the start of the Reformation began.
Yeah, the
So I think,
95 Theses.
yeah. So I think it's kind of like alluding to that, but instead of the Reformation, it's now for equality between men and women in Avonlea. So now we can go to the Q&A. We have two. The first one is of Princess Cordelia Blythe, and she says, I have a theory about Diana and Jerry's relationship. I think the writers are giving some of the Anne and Gilbert book arc to Diana and Jerry. Like book Anne, Diana has a wrong assumption what love is. She wants to live those epic love stories from her books. That's why she was drawn to Jerry. It was a forbidden romance, much like the tales she has read. What do you guys think? Alexis?
So I guess I partially agree with that. However, I do think that Anne still has that same sentiment, when she's talking to the uh when she's talking to the cult in the last episode, in episode 6. And she says, the best thing behind true love is unrequited love. And we talked about this last time, but I think Anne's view of romance, it, like we talked about, it made sense that it kind of like quote came out of nowhere because Anne is a romantic, and I think that's just what she was expecting. Like, she doesn't have any problem feeling that deeply. But I think Diana's assumption of love or the way that she's treating Jerry comes less from her assumption of love and more from her rebellion and kind of her sense of wanting to step out of what her parents want for her. So yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily why she was drawn to Jerry, in my opinion, but I do think that she probably also has more romanticized ideas of what love is. Although on the other hand, she has brought up how her parents are going to want her to marry rich, and she would never be able to marry a farm boy. So she's kind of realistic for the time about it. I don't know. I think I just rambled, but what do you think?
Um, the thing is, I didn't read the book, so that's why I gave this question to you. So I'm not
Oh,
even
yeah.
going to comment on it because people will slaughter me if I say something about the book that is incorrect. So the next question is from Shaniel or Alice, and she said, "What do you think about the theory that the clip of the interview with Amy Beth in Anne's nightclothes and Lucas at the Cuthberts' house is Gilbert coming to the Cuthberts at the beginning of 3X08 in the middle of the night to tell them about the school being on fire?"
Full agreed.
Plausible, yeah.
Yeah, very plausible. Fully accept. This is the theory that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's plausible because someone pointed out it looks like he just threw the vest on over his night clothes, so that makes sense. I would love to see a scene where Gilbert goes and rallies Anne because the schoolhouse is on fire, and if there are any sort of parallels to the fire from the Gillis house, specifically the aftermath from the Gillis fire, I will shit myself. So I could see them like kind of rallying all the kids. Yeah, right? Yeah. Yes. Like at that point in time, Anne and Gilbert were not, or Anne was not speaking to Gilbert. So
Oh my God.
yeah, if there's any
Oh
sort of
my
parallel,
God.
it's finished. I'm over. But I could definitely see them like rallying the other kids, and like even if they don't get there in time to put the fire out, I think I could see them all like kind of having this moment of bonding with Miss Stacy and all the kids as they like kind of quietly just very sadly watch the schoolhouse burn down, which would be very sad. But for those of you that don't know, basically the interview she's referring to, Amy Beth and Lucas did this like quick Q&A about season 3, and Anne, or Amy Beth, I guess, is very clearly in like a nightgown, and her hair is kind of in a messed up braid. She's obviously in the Cuthbert house in Green Gables, and Lucas is also in like just a white shirt, and he has like a vest thrown on over it, and it really just looks like pajamas. But if you look in the background, it looks suspiciously like the Cuthbert house, and someone even pointed out that the lighting on the house, or just the lighting on their interview, seems kind of harsh, like they could see it being filmed at nighttime. So listen, I'm all for this theory. I fully support, and I hope that I'm not getting my clown shoes back out.
Probably.
Let's be real, yeah, I probably am, but I would love that.
Also, I think that's why the kids are at Miss Stacy's house in the promo of the Maritime edit because
Wait.
you didn't realize that's why they're there.
No, I'm such a fool. I didn't think about that. Whoa. Oh, are you talking about the ones where Shirbert is sitting so fucking close to each other? Wow, I'm an idiot. Anyway.
Okay, thank you guys for listening to this new podcast. We're having so much fun doing it. We read all the comments, we read everything, we try to respond to everything. It's so nice. But anyway, this was the end. You could find us on our shared Tumblr, which is Call Me Cordelia Podcast, or on our separate Tumblrs. I am at Lydia's -- styles.
And I'm at Sherbert's with 2 S's.
And again, happy birthday to Amy Beth.
Yes, Queen.
She's amazing. We love her.
We love you, Amy Beth.
So
I do just want to say, like Ophelia mentioned, we do read everything. Like, we read the comments. We obviously like take y'all's Q&A in each episode, and just honestly, thank you guys so much. I feel like we've made this point about every single podcast, but like, you have no idea. When we started this, we really expected it to go nowhere. We just thought we would be venting to empty air, and you guys have been so supportive and appreciative of the podcast, and that was beyond our wildest expectations. So thank y'all for listening. We will always be around to interact. I think I said this last week, but if you ever want to scream or theorize or just shout at the top of your lungs about Shirbert, then both of our Ask Box are open. The joint Ask Box is open. I love screaming about Shirbert, so anytime you want to do that, I'll be around. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.